back to an episode of the Red Zone Report Fantasy Podcast. This is episode 2. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at RZR Fantasy NFL. Listen to us on SoundCloud, Spreaker, YouTube, and at the home base site. Check it out at LARedZoneReport.com. Go to podcast. Check us out. This is a fast-growing website. They cater mostly to Saints, but if you're here to listen to some fantasy, then you've come to the right place because we're talking all teams. We're talking tight ends today. All right. Now, it doesn't matter if you like the Saints or all 31 teams. This is going to be a fun fantasy show. It's always hosted by myself, Nick Faber, and my partner in crime, John Valencia. What's up, John? Any news from the holiday weekend?
No, I'm a pretty boring dude, mostly a homebody, so nothing on my front. I know you had some fun over the weekend, which is good to see, but I'm just happy to talk about some tight ends. There's few things in life that I like talking about more than tight ends.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be a great episode. I mean, for all of you that don't know, what we do here is every week we let the fans choose the topic of our show, right? This is a PPR redraft, pretty much only show. This week it was a battle of banging the table for late round quarterbacks, rookie projections, and talking tight ends. And as John said, we're talking tight ends today. So strap your tight end in because we're talking tight ends. So John, we're just starting the OTAs here. So I mean, obviously all our projections are subject to change. One specifically right now is my 5th ranked tight end and my 18th ranked tight end. Right, that's Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle, respectfully. I have a huge gap in these rankings. I just don't see Jack Doyle coming back from injury and just being the main guy in Indianapolis. Like, what else does Eric Ebron have to do to garner the respect of Andrew Luck and show that he is a tight end one? He literally did everything he needed to. I don't think he's going to replicate 13 touchdowns. He'll be more towards the 8 touchdowns, in my opinion, around 700, 650 yards, 55 receptions. That's good enough to get him 5th in the tight end rankings, as tight ends almost become a thing of yesterday. We still like to talk about him here. So, I mean, do you have Eric Ebron up? I have him top 5. I'm loving Eric Ebron this year. Andrew Luck loves his tight ends, and I'm not buying into Jack Doyle. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I agree. I like Ebron. I'm at 7 right now. I think he's going to kind of come back down to earth a little bit this year. You mentioned 13 touchdowns last year, which I just don't see him replicating that, especially with the return of Doyle. And people forget about Ebron. I mean, this dude's only 26 years old, and he's already been really, really productive throughout his career. Granted, he had a few rough years there in Detroit, and ultimately that his career there wasn't as they had hoped, picking him top 10. But Ebron, I think he's definitely one of Luck's favorite targets. The production's going to go down. I mean, you're going to have a healthy T.Y. Hilton this year. They added Paris Campbell in the draft and the return of Doyle. So I don't like Ebron as a top 5 tight end this year, but he's still definitely a starting caliber tight end and one of the guys you're going to want to target early on in your drafts.
Yeah, I mean, he finished 4th last year, and it took 13 touchdowns for him to finish 4th. The reason I have him 5th is I just don't believe in a lot of the other tight ends. I just don't. I have him above George Kittle. I can't fall in love with George Kittle again this year. He's a guy who seems like a flash in the pan, a Gary Barnidge, if you would. And I don't want to compare the two together because I think Kittle's a very good tight end and could be solid. I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed in San Francisco. So for me, if I'm looking at it and George Kittle's going in the 3rd round while Eric Ebron's going later, I'm going to take Eric Ebron when it comes to redraft. I'm also predicting him to get more points because I just don't believe that George Kittle's going to get the receptions and the volume, the volume that it would take for a tight end to be a top 5 tight end. And he did when they had Nick Mullins in and CJ Beathard in. They were running through a carousel of backup quarterbacks. But hopefully, knock on wood, what I'm projecting is they won't be. And it'll be Jimmy Garoppolo all year. And I'm just not bought into Garoppolo being a tight end quarterback. It seems like he's going to try to whip it out to Dante Pettis and Deebo Samuel and everyone on that team. Marquise Goodwin. Tevin Coleman's there. So I just don't think that George Kittle's going to get a lot of production. So I have him 6th in my rankings behind Eric Ebron. What about you? Are you in the George Kittle train? What are you thinking?
I certainly think what you're saying is fair. Like Ebron, there's a lot of mouths to feed there in San Francisco with the additions of Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurd, and then you get Tevin Coleman in that backfield with Jerick McKinnon and Matt Breida. There's a lot of touches to go around, not just through the air, but on the ground as well. So it'll be interesting to see how San Francisco distributes their offense. Kyle Shanahan, he is done a pretty good job over the years, dealt with a lot of injuries. But yeah, I'm really concerned with Garoppolo and Kittle. Not necessarily concerned, but just waiting to see how their rapport turns out, because we haven't really seen a full sample size from Garoppolo yet in San Francisco. But regardless, I think Kittle still is a top 5 tight end. I'm at tight end 4. Just made the most of his opportunities last year. An insane breakout season. And he makes plays after the catch. He led all tight ends in yards after catch per reception, and also yards per route run. So the receiving ability is there, and he's also a tremendous blocker, which is going to get him a ton of snaps. But as far as production goes, I think we still see a little bit of a dip this year, but I still think he finishes a top 5 tight end.
So you're saying like you think George Kittle is going to finish better than someone like Hunter Henry? Hunter Henry, we lost last year to an ACL injury early, but say he's healthy for 16 games with Phillip Rivers, who really does love to push the ball to his tight end. I mean, that we've seen. All right, so you think George Kittle is going to finish with more points than Hunter Henry in a PPR league?
That's a really tough call. I like Hunter Henry, but it's hard to buy in on a guy who's been hurt the past couple of years, hasn't been on the field. But I do like the rapport he has with Phillip Rivers. He's only 24 years old, so this really could be that breakout season for him. In 2016, 2017 seasons, he was a borderline tight end 1. So if he can stay healthy, I don't see why he can't make that leap ahead and maybe finish as a top 5 tight end. I mean, he's going pretty high in drafts right now, considering his past injury history. But between the two, I would just take Kittle just because he's the younger guy. You don't really have durability concerns with him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Hunter Henry, he is going pretty high. It also seems like that's the potential. Everyone wants to buy in on what Hunter Henry could be. George Kittle did it. We're like, okay, well, we saw what George Kittle could do, but the next guy that could do that could be Hunter Henry, and that's why I feel like he's going kind of high right now. I mean, if you look at it, his ADP is going in the kind of mid-6th round. That's going to be, tight end 7. So it's just something to think about. But all right, so what just happened was we're going to get into a scenario. John, you and I were going to pick a mock draft tight end right now. So let's say we're picking 12. All right, we're picking in the 12th pick. Sitting there with the turn picks on the end of the 5th and beginning of the 6th round. You've got 2 running backs, 2 receivers already. You tell yourself you're going to get a flex and a tight end. So the top 4 remaining tight ends right now at the 5-12 mark in the draft are Eric Ebron, O.J. Howard, Evan Ingram, and Hunter Henry. Who are you taking?
Ooh, I'm going with my boy Evan Ingram. I think you might be on the same page as me. Evan Ingram, he's being, I would say, probably the most undervalued tight end right now, even at his 6th round ADP. But as a rookie, finishes as a top 5 tight end, which is just unheard of. You hear about the learning curve and the time it takes to develop as an NFL tight end coming out of college. But he adjusted right away. This dude's a pure matchup nightmare, insane athleticism, and he emerges now with Odell Beckham gone as the top passing threat in that offense. Last season, he was hurt a bunch, but finished out the season really strong, finished as tight end 2 from weeks 14 to 17. And right now, I think he's just a really big steal right now in the 6th round. I think he, like I said, finishes as a top 5 tight end. I have him at tight end 3 right now. And he's a security blanket in that offense. I mean, Sterling Shepard, he's pretty good, but he's not a number 1 receiver. So they don't really have anyone to target. And granted, it's Eli Manning and Daniel Jones there. But, I mean, the ball's got to go to somewhere. Someone has to produce through the air for the Giants this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fully on board. Like, for me, 3, 4, 5 is Ingram, Howard, Ebron. 6, Kittle, 7, Henry. So these are 4 of my top 7 tight ends. And I have to go with Ingram, right? I have him at 3 as well. Both of us were on the Ingram train. It just seems with OBJ leaving, there needs to be someone that steps up. There's going to be pass plays. The Giants are going to – Pat Shurmur knows what he's doing on offense. They're going to run the ball. They're not going to be an 0-16 team. They're going to open up holes, or they're going to open up passing holes for Eli or Daniel Jones or whoever it is, and hopefully 50% of the time that quarterback can get the ball in the right window to whoever it is. But whoever it is really who they have. They got Golden Tate. Didn't they sign Golden Tate, right?
Yes.
Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. And Saquon Barkley for sure. But so Evan Ingram's going to get the pass attempts. But one guy, just to speak on someone else, because we both love Ingram so much, but O.J. Howard's a guy that I really like too. And he would be number 2 on that option. Like if Ingram was gone and my top options were Howard, Ebron, and Henry, give me O.J. Howard. I love him with the Bruce Arians offense. I think him and Winston are going to be phenomenal together. Winston has shown love for Cameron Brate, but I really believe that now that Howard's coming into his own into the NFL, he's going to be a guy to be reckoned with. So I have him 4th. Like, I really like O.J. Howard this year. I would get him over Ebron, Kittle, Henry, and if you can get him in the 6th round, I feel like that's also a steal. You got anything about O.J. Howard? Where do you have him ranked at?
I have him as my tight end 5 right now. I do have him over Hunter Henry and Eric Ebron. I really like O.J. Howard. He was my top offensive player in the 2017 draft class. It's kind of a weird situation, though, with Bruce Arians coming over. I mean, granted, in Arizona, he never had a talented tight end. He had like a washed-up Jermaine Gresham, Rob Hausler, but he never had a tight end finish above tight end 28, which is, I would say, definitely a concern. But O.J. Howard, he's too good not to produce. So I feel like Arians has to find a way for him to put up production. And with Howard last year, he missed a few games, but if you just pace out his yardage and touchdowns, he would finish as tight end 6 on a 16-game pace. So he's definitely up there, definitely a premier tight end in the league, and someone you should certainly be targeting early on in drafts if you want to go tight end early.
I agree. I mean, of the 9 games that he legitimately played and had 4 or more targets, he caught a touchdown in 4 of those 7 games. He did end up playing 10 games, but in 3 of them, he had 3 or less targets. I'm not even going to include those. After that, he's a touchdown machine. Tampa Bay is going to score a lot of offense. One thing I've kind of preached on the show, if you listen to the last episode and you're listening this episode, is if you want to find fantasy guys in high-producing offenses. I don't really care about Tampa Bay's defense. In fact, the worse, the better. I'm in fantasy. I don't really care for the Bucs as an NFL team. I'm a Lions fan. So when it comes to the Bucs, I want to see them score a lot of points. Then in that case, if their defense is letting up a lot of points because they just released Joe McCoy and they're going to have Vita Vea end up kind of running that line, and I just don't think they're going to produce that well at defense right now. I'm not saying that they're not building, but right now I don't think they're going to be good. So Tampa Bay's going to be scoring a lot of offense. They're in a division with New Orleans, Carolina, Atlanta. All of those offenses are 30, 35-point-a-game offenses. They can be at least. So Tampa Bay has to keep up. They have to stay pace. For that to happen, O.J. Howard's just going to score touchdowns. He's going to get yards. They're going to get, well, it could be garbage time points. I don't really care. In fantasy, the ending number, the ending result is all you care about. And in O.J. Howard's sake, I think that Tampa Bay is going to score a lot of points. So that's why I have him up a little bit more, especially than like George Kittle. Like, I don't think San Francisco, even with spreading the ball around, I don't think they're going to score a lot of points. They're in a defensive division, it seems like. Other than the Rams, Seattle's defense isn't great, but they don't score a lot of points. They kind of run the ball and they try to win by game time possession. Arizona, who knows what they're going to be? It seems like they're trying to go offensive prolific, but we just don't know. So it seems like San Francisco is going to be scoring like 20, 25 points a game in comparison to Tampa Bay's 25, 28 points a game. So give me the team that's going to score 3 more points and hope, knock on wood, that it's O.J. Howard. So that's kind of why I like O.J. Howard, especially a little bit more than George Kittle. But someone that I'm kind of, I think everyone's sleeping on is Austin Hooper, right? Austin Hooper I have ranked 8th right now. And another high-scoring offensive team. Follow the trend. Atlanta's going to score a lot of points. Austin Hooper's just going to get volume. Do you have anything on Hooper, John?
I like Austin Hooper. I have him at tight end 11. If you're going to wait on your tight end, he's a prime target to go for in the once he gets like the 10th, 11th round. Steady improvement each year. He was a really prolific receiving threat coming out of Stanford. But he's the security blanket for Matt Ryan in that offense, even with Julio Jones there. Hooper's the guy that's going to get targets in the intermediate range underneath, and hopefully he can turn out some yak and make big plays. But that outstanding catch rate last year, caught 71 of 88 targets for 80% catch rate. So he's improving each year. I really like Hooper, and Atlanta's going to score points, as you said, so he's definitely going to reap the benefits of that.
I mean, he's got the trend going, but so you said you have him 11th. Who do you have 10 and 9 then? Like, who would you say you have over him?
At 9, I have David Njoku, and this is just like a pure upside thing. He's also a guy who saw a little bit of improvement last year coming out of Miami. Everyone knew of his upside, just insane athleticism and size. And I think Cleveland's going to be a fantasy gold mine this year. I know they have a lot of mouths to feed, especially in the passing game with Beckham now there, Jarvis Landry. But I like Njoku, especially for red zone targets. So I think 9 it might be a little generous just based off his past 2 seasons.
Hold on, hold on. Before we even get into 10, I feel like you're about to get into 10. I want to talk about Njoku real quick. See, I have him 13th, right? And the reason I have him 13th is so I've been watching a lot of film on Njoku. Actually, he's been one of the guys I've been highlighting over the last couple of days. So I'm glad you bring him up. I kind of started highlighting because we were doing this tight end episode. So I'm glad we get brought up. Excuse me, but. One thing that scares me is obviously the addition of OBJ, right? That's just going to take targets away. And it's not like they lost a supreme amount of targets for OBJ to come in and just swoop right up. Like these targets already with Jarvis Landry, Rashad Higgins, Antonio Callaway, Nick Chubb, they add Kareem Hunt, who's going to be playing after 8 games. And then you got David Njoku. Now, this is a team that should be scoring a lot of points. And so it kind of goes with that trend. I want to put him higher. So I even watched film so I could tell myself that I need to put him higher. But there was a lot of drop balls when it came to passes 15 yards then contested. And a lot of drop balls that I see other tight ends make that I'm a little bit more, I'm not too worried when it comes to them. So Njoku kind of scares me catching long balls. The whole offense as a whole is scary because there's a lot of mouths to feed there. So it's someone I can't get behind. But you're right. The pure ceiling could get him up to tight end 8, or tight end 9, excuse me. He's got a lot of upside. He's a beast. He's a beast, dude. He's got great hands. I don't want to talk bad about him, but it's just something I kind of noticed.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern with him. Like I said, that's probably the biggest concern with him at this point. If the Browns never traded for Odell Beckham, I think Njoku would be a lot higher on a lot of people's lists, of course.
Yes, I fully agree. I agree. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And who'd you have at 10?
I have Trey Burton. Finished as tight end 8 last year, which is kind of a quiet season for him, but he still produced quite well. I just really like him to develop more in his second season with Matt Nagy. I think that offense could surprise some people this year. Granted, Mitch Trubisky, he's kind of been hit or miss so far. Hopefully he kind of shows some stability under center next year. And I think even with the receiving core for Chicago isn't the most explosive. I mean, Allen Robinson, solid, Taylor Gabriel, Anthony Miller, and they also drafted Riley Ridley. So they have a bunch of young guys there. It just depends if they emerge this year. Like Miller was all right last year, kind of dealt with injury. And Gabriel, he's always solid out of the slot and can play outside as well. But Burton, I think I'd like him as like the centerpiece of that offense, the guy that you go to for the first downs, the chain mover, and the guy in the red zone as well. I don't really see any red zone threats in the receiving corps. I think Burton could steal a lot of targets there.
That's a very good point. See, I have him at 12. I have him right before Njoku. It's the same thing with Njoku. I just don't see Trubisky being a tight end throwing quarterback, actually. That's why I have Burton a little bit lower than 10. That's why I would rather go with, so I have 11 Vance McDonald, 10 Jared Cook, 9 Tyler Eifert, 8 Austin Hooper. I'll take all of those guys before Njoku or Trey Burton. So Chicago Allen Robinson, when he's out there and healthy, kind of is the wide receiver 1. Anthony Miller in his second year should be way better and should hopefully be healthy and actually produce like we want him to. Taylor Gabriel is crazy out of the slot. He's so fast, it's unbelievable. So is Tariq Cohen. I'm excited. I'm pretty sure he's part of that. What are they doing, that 40-yard dash? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, he's participating.
So is Mark Ingram. Why? Why is Mark Ingram?
I think a lot of Saints fans listening too, but I mean, if he doesn't come in dead last, I'll be very, very surprised.
I mean, yeah.
But good on him for participating. It's for a good cause.
It is. It's for a good cause. I'm glad everyone's doing it. I'm actually really happy. And this is something Jim Nagy even tweeted out. He said, is this something we should – or maybe someone tweeted out to Jim Nagy, excuse me. But this is something that should be happening like the Senior Bowl. This should be happening like at the Pro Bowl. We should be doing 40-yard dashes way more often. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that not the only reason people watch the Combine? Is to see the 40-yard dash? That's it. You get the real NFL, our friends, the NFL, scouts from wherever they, all over the world are actually watching it. But most people that are tuning in the NFL Combine are sitting there to watch the 40. Incorrect or correct, would you say?
I think that's correct. I mean, the casual football fan's not trying to see these dudes be in drills or anything. So I think the 40 time is definitely the most attention grabbing event of the combine, no doubt.
It's the meat and potatoes. So I'm glad that we're doing that. We just kind of got off track on it. But what I'm saying is Trey Burton has a lot of people around him. Cohen, Gabriel, Miller, Allen Robinson. If they're all healthy, I just don't see Trubisky being a quarterback to push it to Trey Burton, though I like him. What'd you think of him while he was in Philly, right? You're big Philly fan, so Trey Burton's sitting there in Philly. Did you like him? Did you think he was going to be a star if he went to another team? Like, are you seeing what you kind of predicted? Like, are you seeing less, more? What are you seeing?
I think he's about on track where I expected. I really loved him in Philly. I mean, the dude threw a touchdown in the Super Bowl, so I'm pretty much indebted to him for life. But he was steady. I mean, this dude even played quarterback in college, if I recall correctly, at Florida, which is quite just a testament to his athleticism. But I thought he was always a guy that would kind of be overpaid as a free agent. I think his contract he got with Chicago was respectable. I never really would view him as a difference maker on offense. But certainly a guy who can make plays and be productive. So I'm not expecting like an insane year from Burton, but I think 10-10, that's quite steady production that you can expect, especially considering he finished as a tight end 8 last year.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. All right. We're into another pop-up mock draft scenario. John, let's see what you and I have to say about this one. We're flipping the script from our last mock draft. Last mock draft, we were sitting at the 12th pick. This time, we have the first overall spot. We were the worst team last year. How'd you let that happen, John? Come on. So we've managed to get 3 running backs and 3 receivers. All right. We got the first pick in the 7th round, and then we're going to watch 22 picks go. All right. So our top options at tight end. We got to get a tight end before all these picks happen. Right. We're looking at Vance McDonald, David Njoku, or Jared Cook. You were just talking about Njoku. Do you like him over Jared Cook and his newly placed Saints and the fans that we, probably most have listening to us? So talk cautiously. Or do you go Vance McDonald, who now has Jesse James gone? No real option 2 at wide receiver. You could say Dante Moncrief. You could say James Washington, but really, who knows? A running back 1, James Conner, that showed he could be very good at running back, but maybe didn't have everything that like Le'Veon Bell had. So Vance McDonald may have more options and more value. McDonald, Njoku, Cook. Who are you taking?
I actually really like Jared Cook this year, and this probably will come as a surprise to you, but I'm at tight end 6 right now, which is probably higher than most. But you just look at last year. I mean, the dude put up a career year in Oakland. I just imagine what's possible with New Orleans and Drew Brees, even a declining Drew Brees.
Whoa, that's a hot take. That's a hot take. You're declining Drew Brees.
He's definitely not his prime self. I still like Drew Brees, and I still think he's a top shelf quarterback in the league. But he's not quite where he was a year or 2 ago. So
sorry, Saints fans. Don't listen to John. I'm just joking. Go ahead.
But I just love Cook this year. High volume New Orleans offense, even though they're not leading the league or anything in pass attempts, just because they win most of their games too, so they don't really have to pass the ball as much as other teams. But they're so efficient. Jared Cook, we saw what Ben Watson did a few years back with the Saints, and Cook is definitely, comparing where they're at in their careers, I think Cook is definitely more talented than where Watson was at a few years ago when he had a monster season for the Saints. So Jared Cook, I think, is going to be a really big surprise this year, and I have him at tight end 6.
I love Jared Cook as well, man, to be all honest. In looking at these 3 guys, just these 3 guys, I have Jared Cook top of the 3. I have him ranked 10th. The one thing that scares me is this is his 11th year in the league, 11th season. And I know the tight end position is, you can play for a little bit longer. I don't know how. You're playing 2 positions, and one of them is offensive line, so I don't know how you play. But it seems like tight ends can kind of last a little bit. So I'm glad Cook is like now having this great year with Oakland, but I almost bought into Cook having these 2 amazing years in Oakland, not amazing, but very solid years in Oakland, to John Gruden last year, Derek Carr last year. I like Cook, and I think he produces a lot. He gets a lot of volumes, a lot of targets, year after year. For 10 years, he's been doing it. So I have him 10. Like, I like him as well. I just don't know if I can buy into him 6. just because was it more Oakland that produced Cook to get those stats, or was it Cook? Like it scares me. New Orleans, like ever since Jimmy Graham, you're like, well, Drew Brees, he's gonna throw it to who'd they just sign from Indy? Colby Fleener. He's gonna be a tight end one. He's gonna be number one. Get out of here, like. So it scares me. I'm scared. I don't want to go chasing another Colby Fleener like that. Jimmy Graham was the white dragon, or what is it? And now we're just chasing it. So I'm scared to draft Jared Cook. Out of Cook, McDonald, Njoku, I would probably draft Cook because I'm going to chase it. But I'll probably wait and see what comes about in the later rounds rather than the 7th round in the draft. But
of those three, would you say McDonald's the safest pick?
That's a great question. Probably, right? I mean, Ben's going to hit his tight end. It's just like, he kind of reminds me of like Heath Miller. Just someone I didn't want to draft Heath Miller, but he would catch 600 yards and 5 touchdowns and 45 receptions. I don't know. I'm just pulling those stats out of my ass, but it's like he is definitely the safest. He's going to get 2 or 3 receptions. PPR, he's going to get you at least 8 points every game, which if you're all right with that, then get him, But I kind of want to get Cook, who might get me 3 points one game, but might get me 17 points the next game, So it's something to think about. That's drafting this. That makes you think, though. That right there, your top 3 options, the first pick in the 7th round. That means by the end of the 6th round, those are your top 3 options. Are you comfortable drafting a tight end? Like, are you seeing those 3 as your top 3 choices? Are you now starting to be like, shit, I should have probably got a tight end a little bit earlier? Or are you still, hey, awesome, like Austin Hooper's still probably going to be out there, blah, 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 other people will be out there, I'm doing fine. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like in years past, you could wait it out for a tight end and kind of still field a successful fantasy team. But I think like through the past couple of years, like tight ends are so important, I think, to your fantasy team's success, especially a guy like Travis Kelce or Zach Ertz, who can literally win you a fantasy football championship. So my draft strategy has kind of changed in that regard. There's some tight ends in the later rounds who I'd be content with, but I mean, you're trying to build a championship winner. So I think this year I'm kind of leaning towards going tight end early, probably in the top 5 rounds. And Evan Ingram, he's going to be my main target this year. If he's available in the 5th round and I already have a running back and some receivers, that's going to be my locked-in pick right there is Evan Ingram.
Kelce, 204, 2nd round, 4th pick. Ertz, 2nd round, 12th pick. Both of them too early?
I mean, you picked Kelce 1st round in our mock draft, so I don't think that's too early. I think, like I said with Kelce, I mean, he's the type of tight end one the past 2 years, just a fantasy stud, and you don't really get many of those at the tight end position. So, I mean, I'm not mad if someone picks Kelce early 2nd, late 1st.
Yeah, if you're sitting at that turn, if you're sitting at that turn, Kelce's got to be someone you're looking at. Like, you truly have to be looking at it. Let me just see, so say you're sitting 11th pick, right? You're sitting there with Julio Jones, James Conner, Odell Beckham Jr., Joe Mixon, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce. You're going to pick one, then 2 picks will be taken. So say we'll take Julio Jones. You assume the guy behind you isn't smart enough to take a tight end the first 2 rounds. He's going to call it pretentious. You should always wait on a tight end. So then you're coming back to the 202. You got Joe Mixon, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce. I don't think it's too early to take Kelce. I'll take him over both of them.
That's a tough choice right there, too.
Mixon, Smith-Schuster, or Kelce. Smith-Schuster could be top 3 receiver. Mixon could be a top 5 running back, given their opportunities. Mixon, Cincinnati, it seems like a lot of people get injured, though I love Cincinnati's offense and Mixon's volume. They went out and drafted 2 running backs this year, so I'm probably going to kind of stray away from Mixon. Smith-Schuster looks like he should be in full blossom as the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh, but is he going to succeed as the number 1 wide receiver? We have yet to see that. We've seen him produce with AB taking multiple coverage away from him, play after play. At that point, it's like Kelce's the safest. If you want
to say definitely the safest pick there.
Definitely the safest pick. We're running out of time and we're flying through these picks here. We are going to go from one to another. You all right with that, John?
Let's do it.
All right. So for this one, right? We've waited for all the top tight ends to go. It's the middle of the 9th round. So we're not in the 9th round. You're about to get Hooper, who you think, is going to be a steal this late, 9th round, but someone else grabs him a pick before you. So you wait until the 11th round. Now we're 11th round. We've got everyone. We've got running backs, receivers, flexes. We're fully stocked. Time to start looking at tight ends. Your top options are Greg Olsen, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Delaney Walker, Trey Burton. Who are you choosing?
I'll go Burton. I talked about him a little bit before, so I'm actually going to just pick someone else just to talk about someone else. Delaney Walker, I kind of like a little bit. I mean, the age is hitting him hard, the health concerns after missing most of last year. But I just look at Jonnu Smith there in Tennessee, and he was a big disappointment last year. He didn't really seize that tight end spot like a lot of us thought, especially in the fantasy community. I mean, he came out of Florida International, I believe it was, where he went to school. But very athletic guy, but he just didn't come to fruition. So I think Walker kind of assumes that top tight end role again this year. And the Tennessee offense just wasn't the same without Walker in it. So I think that's a guy Mariota has always really heavily targeted. And even with decline in old age, I think Walker can still be a productive tight end and potentially a bottom tier tight end 1 this year. I have him at tight end 14 right now.
Florida International University, correct. Jonnu Smith did not. Look, in the NFL, when you get chances, you can't let them slip away. At the tight end position, it's a little different. It takes 4 or 5 years, so I'm not like discarding Jonnu Smith in any way, shape, or form. But it is fun to see Delaney Walker back, and he's been a top like 10 tight end for the last like 7 years before he got injured last year. He was like on a crazy pace. Mariota gained 12 pounds, if you didn't see that. So he's not going to be running as much. He's going to be throwing the ball more. Walker's kind of interesting. I'm way too scared of his injury last year for me to draft him again this year. His age is a horrible concern for me. I would much rather take the upside with Hawkinson, Fant. I'll take the rookies over the veteran. But one guy I want to talk about, and the guy I probably would choose, actually I probably would choose Trey Burton as well. It's kind of crazy that he would last. Wait until the 11th round to get Trey Burton. Might not be the worst thing in the world. Might not be. But someone else I want to talk about, I do like the rookies, but I'm not sold on rookie tight ends, even Hawkinson in Detroit. Give me Greg Olsen. I love Ian Thomas, and I love what he did last year. I love who he's going to be, and I love the tight end he's going to be coming forward. But I'm not scared of Greg Olsen's age and injury proneness, even though it's more than Delaney Walker's. But because I'm more sold on Carolina's offense than I am in Tennessee's offense, I just can't buy into Tennessee scoring more than 18 points a game. I don't like the Titans this year. I especially don't like them in passing. So I'm going to take a team that I think Cam Newton's going to be healthy. It seems like he should be after his shoulder surgery. And if he is, and Greg Olsen is healthy, then he can be a very solid top 12 tight end, maybe even a top 7 or 6 if he's healthy all 16 games. Ian Thomas is someone to worry about. Are you buying into Greg Olsen at all this year? Are you kind of leaning more towards Ian Thomas, or are you is it too much of a conundrum for you to even kind of go into?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this actually, but the reason why I'm not really buying Olsen this year is because of Ian Thomas. Last year Olsen on injured list, Thomas was really, really good, especially for a rookie. Down the stretch last year from weeks 13 to 17, finished as tight end 6. I could see him emerging as the starting tight end this year, even with Olsen there.
I know,
just because
he's so good.
He's so good, and I know we both talked to him in Mobile, I believe. Not this past January, but January before. And I really like his skill set. I think he's the modern day receiving tight end, big body, big frame, good hands. Led the team last year in catch rate. So I think he's definitely a trusted target of Cam Newton. I have Thomas just 3 spots below Olsen in my rankings. With Olsen, I don't know if he has anything left in the tank. I mean, you could say the same thing with Delaney Walker. I just trust Walker a little bit more just because I know his role is guaranteed. Because last year we talked about Jonnu Smith, he didn't do anything, whereas Ian Thomas in Carolina, he did do a lot when his the starting tight end was down. So I like Ian Thomas a lot this year. I think he's a big sleeper. But yeah, Greg Olsen, he very well could surprise. I mean, he's only 2 years removed from a 1,000-yard season. But yeah, I don't see that production getting there. And Ian Thomas, like I said, one of the biggest sleepers at tight end this year.
Where are your rankings on it? You said you have him 3 below, but where are they at?
I have Olsen probably a lot lower than you. I have him at 18, and I have Ian Thomas at 21.
I mean, I got Olsen at 16. Like, I would rather some guys ahead of him. Like Delaney Walker, I have at 14. Like, I just want to talk about Olsen, but I like Delaney Walker kind of more than Olsen, even though I wanted to talk about it. But Jordan Reed at 15, another injury-prone guy. Those injury-prone guys kind of all clammed up together. At 17, I have Jimmy Graham. 18, Jack Doyle. I couldn't really decipher those 5. You know, like they're all potentially top 10 tight ends, but they're all injury prone, and where do you go? And then below it, I got Hockenson, who's 19, and Herndon 20, and Andrews 21. Like, all those guys could break out, but do you scare? And then 22 is Kyle Rudolph, and 35 is Irv Smith. Like, Minnesota drafted Tyler Conklin last year, Irv Smith this year. Rudolph might be on his way out. Like, where do you have Rudolph ranked? Like, do you even think he's going to be a Viking by September 1st?
It's crazy with Rudolph because, I mean, he still finished as a top 8 tight end last year, which he has done for the past 3 seasons. I mean, he's only 29 years old, so I thought this dude was probably in like mid-30s by this point, but he's still fairly young compared to like a guy like Delaney Walker or Greg Olsen.
So I'm saying tight ends play forever, man. They're like the quarterback. I don't get it, but they do.
I really like Irv Smith from Alabama. I think bringing him in definitely takes snaps away from Rudolph, but Rudolph's just pretty solid. He has a high floor, low ceiling type guy. I think he's a guy Kirk Cousins trusts, along with Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. So I don't know with Kyle Rudolph and with Kyle Rudolph and Greg Olsen, I'm not really buying them this year, although they still could be productive players.
What do you got Rudolph ranked at?
Rudolph had him 10 and 19, right behind Greg Olsen.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was all in on Rudolph last year. I thought Kirk Cousins was going to come to Minnesota and throw nothing but to his tight ends. He loved it. Vernon Davis and Jordan Reed, like in Washington, but he did not get in on Rudolph last year. But I'm going to throw in one last kind of just scenario just because we're running out of time. We got a couple minutes left. And a couple guys we brought up are all kind of grouped right together in ADP. So this is going to be a spontaneous mock draft question. You're sitting there, right? Last tight end, last pick of the draft. Who would you rather have? Jimmy Graham, Jordan Reed, Mark Andrews, Chris Herndon?
I'll take the upside of Herndon. I do like Jimmy Graham a little bit still this year, but Herndon, I mean, New York has a decent passing attack, but no weapons really that I think will emerge as number one. I mean, Robbie Anderson, they added Jameson Crowder, but Herndon was very, very good last year as a rookie. He has that rapport with Sam Darnold. So I think his ceiling is definitely a tight end 1 for Herndon. Upside is a lot higher than Graham as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Andrews has got a lot of upside. Like I like Mark Andrews a lot. I do like Chris Herndon just because, so for me, Robbie Anderson is good. Like, I think he is being slept on wholeheartedly. Hopefully we get a wide receiver theme. Fans, if you're listening, please vote up wide receiver theme so I can talk about Robbie Anderson. But I think he's being super underappreciated. If he's not suspended, he plays the whole 16 games. He's healthy. He's ready to go. I think he's going to be very good. But that's it. Like, sure, you signed Jameson Crowder, but that doesn't worry me. You released Jermaine Kearse. You got Quincy Enunwa coming back from injury. He's good, but Herndon does have a lot of upside. Jimmy Graham, I bought into him last year, and I've told myself time and time again, you can't buy into any Green Bay Packer tight end. You just can't do it. I don't care who it is. I don't care what the name is. Don't buy to any Green Bay Packer tight end. Rodgers just doesn't throw to his tight ends that often, especially in the red zone. He likes those fades to wide receiver 2. I'm telling you, or Devontae. Jordan Reed, I like a lot. He would be my option. Jordan Reed, I think, has a lot of upside with Washington and Dwayne Haskins coming out there, and Haskins going to be throwing the ball kind of to his safety net, and so I like him if he stays healthy. I know taking him 15th tight end is a little high, but in this scenario, we're taking him at the very last pick. This is my tight end, for at least week 1. So if he gets injured in week 1, then it's all right. I'll get rid of him and probably get Chris Herndon or Mark Andrews or Jimmy Graham, who weren't drafted. But of these 4 who I'm going to take for week 1, give me Jordan Reed and hope that he can come out, catch a couple touchdowns, and kind of get his old self back. So that's me. Like, I like Jordan Reed. Do you have anything on Jordan Reed? Are you all right with him, or are you just way scared away like everyone else in the world?
Yeah. I'm done with Jordan Reed. I've been buying him for the past few years, but just the durability is always going to be a concern. And I think in Washington, they're going to start targeting the receivers more. They bring in a bunch of young guys, Kelvin Harmon, Terry McLaurin, who was Haskins' former teammate at Ohio State, and also Trey Quinn playing in the slot. So I think we're going to see a lot of distribution in that offense to their younger guys. Jordan Reed doesn't really do much for me. I think Vernon Davis is on like a similar skill at this point, and I think they'll see decently comparable volume, although Reed should lead by a little bit in targets. But Reed, I think his ship has sailed, and I think he's a little past his prime at this point.
So we are literally running out of time. There's one more tight end team I want to talk about. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you write for the Pro Football Network and for the Houston Texans, right?
Yes.
So
sure
have you looked at the Houston tight end situation? Are we looking at Jordan Thomas? Are we looking at Jordan Akins?
So I only did a top 25 list. I don't have any of them ranked, the Houston tight ends. If I had to pick one, I definitely would pick Jordan Thomas. This was a 6th round pick last year, but he emerged over Jordan Akins, who they drafted as well last year in the 3rd round. Thomas definitely looked like the better player of the two. And then they also had Kahal Warning this year in the 3rd round as well. So there's a lot of youth and upside there in that Houston tight end group. But as far as this year goes, I don't think any of them really bring value in redraft. Jordan Thomas, he's a red zone threat, though. He had 4 touchdowns last year, so that's 2nd on the team, I believe. So if he starts eating up touchdowns in the red zone, he could definitely have some fantasy value.
Are we going to be expecting an article about the Houston tight ends soon?
I actually already wrote one, which you can go check out at Pro Football Network.
Look at that.
Thanks for that. I appreciate the setup. Put them up and I'll put them down.
That's what I'm saying. All right, well, that was the show. Right, we appreciate it. This was the tight end talk. Y'all chose it, and we did it, and that's what's going to happen week after week. You pick our topics. We love it. You pick the topics. You pick any topic. We'll put 4 out there. You pick whatever one you like. We'll talk about it. We don't care. Make sure you're, again, checking out the great website that hosts us, puts us on, LARedZoneReport.com. There's a little spot there. It goes, support us. If you like what you're saying, go donate 50 cents, $1. Doesn't matter. Don't donate. Just listen. We appreciate all of you. Follow us. That website. Follow the website, LA Red Zone Report. Follow us, John and I here, our fantasy show at RZR Fantasy NFL, Red Zone Report, Fantasy NFL, RZR, Fantasy NFL. Follow me personally, Nick Faber, NFL. John, where are they following you at on Twitter?
You can follow me at John Valencia, BF John with no H.
Hey, make sure you listen to us on Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, or under podcast at the LARedZoneReport.com website I literally just mentioned. John, is there anything you wanted to say during the show but didn't get a chance to, or is there anything you want to say to the fans, where the fans can get any more content from you? Anything? What do you got to say to finish this out?
I just want to throw this out there. In my Debbie depleted Superflex team, which is tight end premium, on my roster I have Travis Kelce, Noah Fant, Chris Herndon, and who's the other guy I have? I just blanked on it. Anyway, I have really good tight ends in my Debbie team, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
So you're listening to the best, is what he's saying.
And
let him blow.
It's Fant and Kelce and Herndon, so I got a lot of tight end power there.
That's why you were all in on Herndon. It all makes sense now.
Exactly.
We appreciate you listening. Come back next week. We'll be talking about something. You go tell us. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.